Hello guys, it is Gate of Theories here, and many Pixar theorists always make a theory about some sort of movie, and then what they do is later on they come back to that theory and expand on it. Probably the most well-known one would definitely be the Pixar theory, where you keep adding new Pixar movies into it when new ones come out. And another well-known one is, who is a person's monster? And Super Carlin Brothers did this twice. They did it once for Toy Story's Andy, and a second time for Inside Out's Riley. And us here on Gate of Theories, we've done it once for Toy Story 3's Bonnie. But there is one character who I'm really surprised they actually have not worked out who his monster is. And he's the main character of Coco. That's right. Today we're looking at who Miguel's monster is. But before we go any further, just make sure you've clicked that red subscribe button. And if you want to take part in our emoji quiz, then make sure that you comment down below what movie you think these emojis represent. And stick around till the end of the video to find out what the answer is. So, like I said before, I was very surprised that no one has actually ever found out who Miguel's monster is, and then when I started looking into it, I realized why no one has, because it is incredibly hard to find out who Miguel's monster is. Firstly, because we do not know what Miguel is scared of. On his wiki page, it does not say what on earth he's scared of, so I had to look through Coco very carefully to see if I could work out what Miguel's fears might be, and I found three main ones. The first one would be Pepita, and when Miguel first ever meets Pepita, he is so terrified of her, and it's only by the end of the movie when Pepita actually saves Miguel from the ginormous hole is when Miguel overcomes his fear of Pepita. But at the start of the movie, he is extremely terrified of Pepita. Another fear he has is performing in front of people. Of course, he overcomes this when he sings Poco Loco, but at the beginning of Poco Loco, it's his first ever time performing in front of people, and he is really scared of doing it, and really nervous and shy, and is worried about performing in front of people. But as soon as he does Poco Loco, he seems to overcome it. And finally, the last fear he has would be his grandma. You know, at times. Sometimes he's not scared of his grandma, but there are times where his grandma can be pretty violent or really strict on him, where Miguel actually looks like he's pretty scared of his grandma. So, the three things Miguel is scared of is Pepita, performing in front of people, and his grandma at times. Now, notice how through Coco, he actually overcomes all these fears. So obviously, what would happen is Miguel would be scared by the monsters before Coco, but then would overcome his fear of the monsters after the movie has taken place, meaning monsters wouldn't be able to come through the doors and scare him after Coco. The next thing we need to work out is which generation of monsters would be scaring Miguel. Would it be the scarers from Monsters University or the scarers from Monsters Inc? Now, we can easily work this out because at the beginning of Coco, Miguel says that Ernesto de la Cruz died in 1942. And when Ernesto de la Cruz died, Coco would be a child. And let's say there's around 20 years between each child, then the grandma would have been born 20 years later, so in 1962. Then Miguel's parents would be born another 20 years later, so 1982. Finally, if we add another 20 years, then Miguel was born around the year 2002. On Miguel's wiki page, it also says that Miguel is around 12 years old when Coco has taken place, so the events of the film would take place 12 years after 2002, meaning the year is 2014, which is 1 year before the events of Inside Out take place. Because Super Carlin Brothers found out Riley's monster from Inside Out is George Sanderson, then we can say that Miguel's monster would have to be a scarer in Monsters Inc. instead of Monsters University. That doesn't mean they can't be in Monsters University, it just means that while Monsters University is taking place, they're not actually working at Monsters Inc., they would be in university, like Mike, like Sully, like George. Now let's go back to Miguel's fears. Now, a way to find out what on earth this monster looks like is by looking at one of Miguel's first fears, which is Pepita. Pepita has so many different colours on her that surely we must be able to find a monster that looks like her. Well, not really, because the most colours monsters have on them is usually 2 or 1. It's kind of really rare to find a monster that has 3, and Pepita has so many colours on her that it would be so hard to find a monster that has that many colours on. Except we do see Pepita at the end of the movie in different colours. When she crosses from the land of the living to the living world, she changes from being this big colourful winged monster into a black and grey cat. So instead of looking for a monster with so many different colours, we just need to look for a monster that is only black and grey. And in Monsters University, when there's loads of scare teams for the scare games, one team is called Hiss, and loads of its monsters in it are just black and grey. Now, we can narrow this team down really easily by just crossing out the monsters that aren't black and grey, as 3 out of the 6 monsters in this team are actually pink or purple. This leaves only 3 monsters, which are Nancy Kim, Rosie Levin, and Sonia Lewis. Now we need to find out if any of these 3 monsters actually become a scarer and work on Monsters Incorporated in the future. Now, the easy way to find this out is if they are on a scare card, because if you are on a scare card, then it means that you have become a scarer. And luckily, at the end of Monsters University, it shows every scare card that was from Monsters University. And there are only 2 out of the 3 monsters here who make it as a scare card. And that is Nancy Kim and Rosie Levin. And further proof that these guys actually do make it as a scarer is on Nancy Kim's wiki page. It says she becomes a scarer along with her fellow Hiss member, Rosie Levin. If we look back at Miguel's fears again, one of them was performing in front of people, and we know that Nancy Kim and Rosie Levin are completely the opposite of this, so they could use this to scare Miguel. And we know they're completely the opposite of it because, of course, they participate in the scare games. They are technically performing the scare games in front of a crowd, and they're not scared one bit, so they're the opposite to Miguel. So we've made references to 2 out of 3 of Miguel's fears that are the opposite with Nancy Kim and Rosie Levin, and that they could use these opposites to scare Miguel. One is, of course, the fear that we've just talked about, and we know that they would look sort of black and greyish as Pepita when she turns into a black and grey cat. Now, the last fear is, of course, the grandma, and I thought the way how we could find this out is because we know that in Monsters University, the Hiss team go to a disco and start dancing, and we know that the grandma at the end starts dancing, so I thought there might be some sort of similarity between their dance moves, and there is. It's kind of hard to tell, but the way the grandma and Nancy Kim dance is they use their head and don't move around much. Like, they don't usually move the rest of their body and their feet. They just usually dance with their head. So, seeing as Nancy Kim can sort of like move the same way as the grandma, she could use that to scare Miguel. And you'll notice that Rosie Levin usually uses the rest of her body and not really her head. So I would say that Rosie Levin isn't the monster because she may seem like she's black and grey, but in fact, she's mainly just all grey, whereas Nancy Kim is black and grey. So I think we've found the answer. Miguel's monster is Nancy Kim from Monsters University and from the team Hiss. So guys, that is who we think Miguel's monster is. If you did enjoy this theory, then please like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell us in the field section down below what you thought of this theory, if you think Nancy Kim could be Miguel's monster, or if you think it could be any other monster from Monsters Inc. Tell us all that in the field section down below. And the answer to the emoji question is the Maze Runner. If you did get that right, then please tell us that in the field section down below. And as always, we've been here on Gate of Theories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.